Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Madolche deck profile. So it's a really cool deck that actually focuses around not having any monsters in your graveyard, which is a really cool concept for a deck. It actually has been showing up a lot recently in the meta as well, which is a really cool thing about this deck, that even being created all the way back in Zexal still shows its face in the competitive scene, and is a really cool rogue tier 2-ish deck to throw into the mix, which is really kind of neat. I really like the way that the deck plays, and it's a super cool deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on your screen, become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon in the description below because we have all sorts of awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name description for every single video, getting a signed card in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month through a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Madolche Madolche. So Madolche is a really cool card in this deck that when this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, and sent to the graveyard, you shuffle it into the deck, which is the main basic effect of all of your Madolche monsters, that they're going to shuffle themselves back into the deck a lot. It also has the ability that when this card is normal or flip summon, that you can add a Madolche monster from your deck to your hand, so Madolche is the main searcher of the entire deck. We then play 3 copies of Madolche Angeli. So Angeli is a really cool card as well, that if this card is in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, then you can shuffle this card into the deck. And then you contribute this card to special summon a Madolche monster from your deck, but shuffle it into the deck during the end phase of the next turn. You only use the effect of Angeli once per turn, and that special monster cannot be destroyed by battle either, which is a really cool effect. We then play 3 copies of Madolche Petting. This card is really cool too because it has the ability that if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to the graveyard, then you shuffle it into the deck. And it also has some really neat effects. If you control no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is special summoned, then you can special summon a Madolche monster from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself. And if you do, reduce its level by 1. And also you can have special summon monster the rest of the turn, except for Madolche monsters, which is totally fine because we pretty much only play Madolche monsters in this entire deck and in the extra deck. We then play 3 copies of Madolche Hoot Cake. So Hoot Cake is really cool too because it shares the ability if it's destroyed that it puts itself back into the deck, and then it also has the ability that you can target 1 Madolche card in your graveyard and banish it, and if you do, you special summon 1 Madolche monster from your deck, which is pretty cool to be able to just put those cards back and then be able, or banish it, and then be able to put another Madolche on your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Messin Gelato. So Messin Gelato is a really good card in the deck too. Messin Gelato is a really neat card because it has a really cool effect that when this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you shuffle it back into the deck, and then when this card is special summoned, you get to add a Madolche spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is a really cool effect, but you must control a face-up beast type Madolche monster to activate and resolve this effect, so you have to control something like a Hoot Cake on your side of the field to resolve the effect, which is not that big of a deal, but it's something to keep in mind. We then play a single copy of Madolche Puddingsus. Puddingsus is pretty good in the deck too. She's basically kind of like the Garnet of the deck, but she's really needed in the deck because when you control, when this card you control is destroyed by an opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you shuffle her into the deck, and then she also has the ability that when you control, when you have no monsters in your graveyard, while this card gains 800 attack and defense, and after damage calculation, while this card battles an opponent's monster, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy that target. So she's a really good, she's a really good card to have in your deck for, especially for chocolate a la mode. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells and traps. So for the spells and traps, we're going to be playing quite a few spells and traps in the deck, which is 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. So Cosmic Cyclone is really good in the deck too, because it has the ability to banish a spell or trap on the field by paying 1,000 life points, and you don't really have a lot of ways to deal with spells and traps in this deck, so playing the 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone comes in really handy. You don't want to discard your cards to the graveyard, so this card is really good at just banishing stuff like Mystic Mine and other cards that you just don't want to deal with. Play a single copy of Madolche Ticket. Madolche Ticket is when a Madolche card is returned from your side of the field to the deck, or from your field to the graveyard to your hand, or your, when a Madolche card is returned from your side of the field or graveyard to your hand or main deck, add a Madolche card from your deck to your hand, which is pretty cool that it just searches any Madolche card that you need at any particular time. And if you control a face-up fairy-type Madolche monster, you can special summon that monster from your deck in face-up attack position, which is as well really good instead of adding it from your hand, adding it to your hand, because this card is really good at just helping you swarm the board, but it's easily searchable in this deck, so you just want to play it as a one-of. We play 2 copies of Madolche Chateau. Chateau is really good in the deck too, because it has some really neat effects that when this card is activated, you shuffle all Madolche monsters in your graveyard into your deck, and all Madolches gain 500 attack and events, and if a monster is in your graveyard would be returned to the deck, then you can add it to your hand instead, which is a really neat effect to go along with your copy of Ticket. We then play 2 copies of Madolche Salon. So Madolche Salon is during your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Madolche in addition to your normal summoner set, which kind of helps out the deck because before they actually banned the Brilliant Fusion engine, you could use the Brilliant Fusion engine to kind of help this deck out, but by creating Salon, you really don't need it anymore, and they used to use Ultimate Offering in the deck as well before it got banned a long time ago. That's how long I've been actually like playing this deck, but it's really neat to actually play Salon because Salon just helps out where the shortfalls are in the deck. So it also has the ability that if another Madolche card you control is in your graveyard is added to your hand or shuffled into your main deck by a card effect, you can send a Madolche spell or trap from your deck except another copy of Salon, which helps out a lot to get like Chateau or Ticket onto your side of the field or one of your traps. We then play a single copy of Call by the Grave because you just want to stop hand traps in this deck and deal with your opponent's hand traps. And then we play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance just helps out in the deck a lot because it helps you draw 2 cards off the top of your deck by banishing 6 cards out of your extra deck, which we play pretty much the same cards in the extra deck that you're going to be needing 3 of, so it's not that big of a deal. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is going to be your only hand trap that you play in the entire deck because you don't want to play any of the other hand traps because you're going to have monsters in the graveyard. And what this card does, it basically is an effect veiler in a trap form that you can activate on the very first turn, which is pretty cool. I like this card a lot to be able to just negate cards on the field. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Strike. Yes, we're playing 1 of each rarity, which is really cool. What this card does is when a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, you can pay 1,500, negate the activation if you destroy that card. So this card comes in really handy where you would normally play like Ash Blossoms or Nibiru's or stuff. This card comes in really handy to just stop your opponent from doing all sorts of crazy stuff. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment because as long as you're still in the game, you always have half your life points to pay to resolve this effect, which is why you play this card as a 3 of in the deck because it can negate pretty much anything in the game, because when a monster would be summoned or a spell or trap card is activated, you pay half your life points to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then for the Madolche traps, I play a single copy of Madolche Knight in my build because when a monster effect is activated, or if you have no monsters in your graveyard, you negate the activation of that card. And then if you control a Madolche Pudding Sis, you shuffle 1 random card from your opponent's hand into the deck. So it's a very, very powerful counter trap that you can actually search from the deck with a lot of your different monsters in the main deck and get it onto your side of the field. Even with Salon, this card is really easy to just search and set. And then we play 2 copies of Madolche Promenade. So Promenade lets you target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and a Madolche card you control or in your graveyard and negate the effects of the opponent's monster until the end phase turn, and you do return your monster to your hand. And you manage this card from your graveyard and then target a Madolche XZ monster you control and attach a Madolche monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to that monster as a material, which is going to help you out a lot with the different monsters getting your copy of Pudding Sis onto as a material to different monsters. So that's it for your main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, since we're going for an extravagance build here, we're going to be playing a lot of the same monsters. So for example, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Madolche Pudding Sis Chocolate a la Mode. So this card is really, really good in the deck, and she has the ability that you can also XZ summon her using a rank 4 or lower Madolche XZ monster you control as a material. And then once per turn, you can detach material from this card, or you can target a Madolche monster in your graveyard, shuffle it in the deck, and then while this card has a Madolche Pudding Sis as a material, when a Madolche card is in your graveyard is shuffled into the main deck, except during the damage step, you can detach a material from this card to special summon a Madolche monster from your deck in attack position or face down defense position. So this card comes in really handy at getting your monsters back on your field really quickly. Let me play my personal favorite in the entire extra deck, and that is 3 copies of Madolche Queen Tiramisu. Tiramisu is ridiculously good in this deck because you can once per turn detach a material from this card and target 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard, shuffle those into the deck, and then after this card resolves, after they shuffle in the deck, you can target 2 cards, or you don't target actually, after this card resolves, you shuffle cards your opponent controls into the deck up to the number of Madolches that were returned. So for example, if I hit 2 cards in my graveyard, I don't target them, I just shuffle 2 cards into your deck, which is why this card is so good, because you just don't even have to target. We then play 3 copies of Madolche Teacher. Madolche Teacher is pretty good too, because she has a really neat effect that you can quick effect detach a material from her and then target a Madolche monster on the field. This turn, that face-up monster is unaffected by our opponent's card effects, or unaffected by monster effects, and then except by its own. And if a Madolche card is sent to the graveyard while this card's on the field, except during the damage step, you can shuffle 2 cards from the graveyard into the deck, and you can only use each effect of her once per turn. We then play 3 copies of Madolche Fresh Sistart. She's really good in the deck too. Sistart is really good because she has some really neat effects that when this card points to a Madolche monster, Madolche spells and traps you control cannot be destroyed by card effects, and also neither player can target them with card effects. And if this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can shuffle a Madolche monster from your graveyard into your deck. And then we play some generic link monsters, which is a single copy of Nightmare Phoenix because it helps you pop spells and traps, Nightmare Unicorn because it helps you spin stuff, and a single copy of Access Code Talker. Now these can be changed out for anything you particularly want. If you want to make it a little bit more budget, but you are playing Madolches, you could take it out for Boral Load or Boral Sword if you want to play those. It totally depends on you what you want to play in the extra deck for these 3 slots. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really cool deck to play with. I really like this deck. I feel like this deck is just super cool to play with, and it's just a really fun deck. Like, I really enjoy the way that the deck functions, and it's just a super cool deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below so we have all those awesome rewards, you guys. Then we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.